Hi. It has been a while since I have done a recommendation video for Child Free by Choice romance books. We are due for another one. I think the last time I did this was last summer. So welcome to part 4 of me recommending Child Free by Choice romance books. I'm happy to be back to give you guys more recommendations. If you are new here to this series, I will put the playlist down below so you can catch up on all the other videos. Basically, to explain this whole series, I am a Child Free by Choice person and I love reading romance books that reflect that. And when it comes to these videos, I am specifically recommending books where the couple or main characters explicitly say that they are child free by choice, that they don't want kids, they don't ever plan on having kids, and these books all have child-free endings. I will give you the recommendation of the book and then I will read the specific passages from the books where either the couple or the characters state that they don't want kids, so you know exactly what you're getting into. Because I have found that there are some books that people will label as child-free, but it is in a way where there are no children mentioned or featured in the book at all. But for me, I like it when the characters explicitly say that they are child-free by choice, just because that representation doesn't happen often, and I want to give you guys recommendations for books that do actually have that, and you know, give you the recommendations with characters that have the same worldview as we do. If you are also a Child Free by Choice person and this is your first time watching me, welcome. So happy to have you. Thank you for joining. I have my iPad here that I'm going to be reading off of passages from the book. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm reading quote for quote what the characters are saying in the book. But as always, we have to start with some honorable mentions. You know, I love some honorable mentions when I do these videos. And books listed as honorable mentions are there for some reason or another. For today's video, I have a couple honorable mentions, and these are in this category because I have DNF'd these books. And you must be wondering, why am I making recommendations for books that I've DNF'd? And that's because just because a book doesn't work out for me doesn't mean it won't work out for someone else. Especially once I describe the book, you might end up thinking, oh, I actually might like that book. So that's why I still recommend books that I either DNF'd or didn't like. The first honorable mention I have is Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. And as I said, I DNF'd this book. I DNF'd it last year. It actually released last year. I had specifically read this book because I had heard that there was a child free by choice couple in it. The only thing is that Hannah Bonham Young has not worked for me in the past. I've tried to read their works before, and I think I have pretty much at this point DNF'd every book that I've attempted to read from that author. So I was going in a bit skeptical, knowing that I have DNF'd this author in the past, but because it was a child free by choice couple, I decided to go for it anyway. Yeah, I was correct. I should have listened to my gut because she DNF'd it. She sure did. Yep. Really, because this book is about a marriage in trouble. You have these two main characters. They've been married for a while and things are stagnant. Things are stale, mainly because the female main character, and I'm sorry, I don't even remember these names because I truthfully do not care for these characters or this book. But marriage in trouble, the husband, he comes from a wealthy family and he has his own business, so he's low-key a millionaire. The female main character is a stay-at-home wife, right? And they've been together since they were in high school. So they've known each other their entire lives. They've been together their entire lives. And the female main character doesn't feel like she's doing anything with her life. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't have kids. And she feels like she's really not going anywhere with her life. And one of the reasons why I DNF'd this book was because the female main character was insufferable in this book because she blamed her husband for enabling her to not do anything with her life, for not pushing her to do anything. And I'm like, girl, why would you need a man to motivate you to do something with your life if you want to do something with your life? If you're feeling stagnant and unfulfilled, do something about it. Why are you... Anyway. And so she, feeling like their marriage is at a standstill, signs the both of them up for a week-long camping retreat that's also a couples counseling retreat. There's a bunch of couples going, and it's just a retreat for them to kind of, you know, work on their issues and get their shit back together. And she actually drags her husband onto this camping trip. He does not want to go. Why don't you just do regular couples counseling like normal people? Why do you have to go on a camping retreat? I don't get that. Anyway, I honestly DNF'd it right when they got to the camping trip, so I don't even really know what happened after that. But because I DNF'd it, I had to look up the conversations that they had about not wanting kids. So she's talking to one of the therapists, I believe, that go on to this camping trip with them. Okay, her husband's name is Caleb. It says right here, the couples counselor says, Caleb briefly shared yesterday that you two aren't planning on having children. Has that been a point of contention between you? No, I answer. Before Caleb and I got engaged, he asked me if I saw myself as a parent and was relieved that I felt the same as he did. It's just not something I'd ever really wanted for myself. We've revisited the conversation a few times, but have never contemplated it for long. I love hanging out with my niece and I like being around kids, but I also enjoy going home to have a full night's sleep in a tidy house with a white couch and breakable shit everywhere. Truthfully, sometimes in my most insecure moments, I've thought about having kids just to have something to fill my time or give me purpose. And what she says about having insecure moments where she thought about having kids just to have something to fill her time or give her purpose, I think is a very valid reason that people have kids, because they just want something to fill their time with and they feel like they don't have any fulfillment if they don't have kids. And I completely understand how they could see that, because that is kind of what society tells us, is that we will only ever find fulfillment and true love if we have kids. And I wholeheartedly do not believe that. And I think people that have kids just because they want something to take up their time or because they feel like it's something for them to do, yeah, I wouldn't want to be the child of that parent, honestly. And obviously, as you can tell, Caleb feels the same way. He does not want kids. So this marriage in trouble, despite having their issues, are very adamant that neither of them want kids. And that's amazing, having both of them on the same page about that. And I feel like I might be the outlier in this opinion of not having liked this book. A lot of people did really enjoy it. And I know a lot of my mutuals really love Hannah Bonham Young. So I definitely feel like I'm on the outlier in this opinion. If any of that interests you, or if you had, Hannah Bonham Young on your TBR, I still highly recommend checking this book out because you might enjoy it. So yeah, that is Out of the Woods. All right, the last honorable mention I have is called Fake Flame by Adele Buck. And this is another book that is on my honorable mentions because I did DNF it. I DNF'd it a few years back now. It's been a few years since I've read this. And the reason why I did is because I felt like the writing was giving very much Wattpad, in that sort of cringy, juvenile type of writing, and the characters, even though they are older, still spoke and acted like teenagers, and I hate that. I hate when authors give us older characters and yet they still act very immature. Now, I remember the beginning of this book being kind of iconic and it really did hook me in the beginning. You have Ava, who is an English professor, I think English professor, on a university campus, and her ex is trying to win her back, and what he does is basically somehow haul a baby grand piano into the middle of the quad and start serenading her, and she is livid because she's over this man and he will not stop trying to get her back. How her and Sean, the male main character, meet is that she sets that piano on fire. Sean is a firefighter and he gets called to this campus to put out the fire and figure this shit out. This actually is a reverse age gap. Eva is in her early 40s, I think she's 41, and Sean is in his, I think, mid to early 30s. And it is a reverse age gap, which I love. And then these two end up fake dating for some reason that I can't really remember because, again, I read this years ago. But I love that it was a reverse age gap with the woman being older and the man being younger, because it does create a, I think, very natural obstacle that couples with this sort of age gap have, in that because Ava's older, she knows she doesn't want kids and she's in her early 40s, so she knows that her biological clock is already dwindling, and she knows that even if she tried, it probably wouldn't happen. The probabilities are really low for her, and it's not like she wants kids anyway, but she knows that even if she did, like, there's a lower chance for her to be able to get pregnant. Sean, in the beginning, he does want kids, or at least he thinks he does. And this, like I said, becomes a big obstacle in the relationship because she knows that because she's older, it's not happening for her and she doesn't want it. But Sean is still younger and he does still have the ability to have kids and is young enough to where he still has time to be a dad, and like, you know, it could still happen for him because he's younger. And there's a passage in here where Eva is talking to someone who asks her, do you have any kids? In her inner monologue, Eva thinks, as someone who had been ambivalent about having kids as a younger person, Eva had always been more than a little uncomfortable with that question. The simple answer of no seemed to give a lot of people license to freely express opinions on her personal life, usually negative ones, like, well, that's just selfish. At best was the unnecessarily sympathetic, oh, but you're still young, you have time, which might be comforting if she wanted to parent children, but now that she'd passed the age of 40, she knew she definitely didn't. Despite what some people said, her life without kids was good. It was full and meaningful and enough for her. And I think that is definitely something a lot of women get when, you know, they express that they don't want kids. People always have a counter argument to it, and no one really takes a woman's word when they say they don't want kids. Like, they don't believe it, as if, of all people, I don't know what I want in my own life. There is this conversation that Sean and Eva have where they are contemplating their relationship because she knows that he might want to be a dad one day, and she knows that she's definitely not going to be a mom any day. And he has his own counter arguments with her, saying, you know, people in their 40s still can have kids. And she said, I don't want to take those risks because I don't want kids. And he says, well, maybe we could adopt. And she's like, no. He's like, okay, well then we just won't have kids. And she basically tells him, all right, we need to take a break because you need to figure out what you want. I don't want you to only not have kids because I don't want kids. You need to know for sure that you yourself do not want kids at all, because I don't want this to be something that you just say, okay, we're not going to have kids. And then you end up resenting me because you're going to change your mind later down in life and decide, oh, you actually do want kids and you don't have any because you wasted all this time with me, someone who doesn't want kids. And again, I feel like that is a very realistic conversation and obstacle to have in a relationship. They do end up going on a break, and Sean takes that time to think about whether he does actually want kids, and he decides that maybe he just was coasting and assumed that it would happen one day, but not really thinking that it was something that he actually wanted. And of course, they have a child-free happily ever after. I think I DNF'd this closer to the end, which is why I remember so much about this book, mainly because I loved that conversation about, you know, having children, especially when the woman is older. And I did find like some of the situations in this book really funny, especially when you have a younger male character who is giving very much frat boy jokes, goofy type of personality, and a very serious, established older woman. I love that dynamic. It's super fun. So yeah, that is Fake Flame. All right, moving on to the actual recommendations now. The first book that I have to recommend to you is The Brazen One by Daisy Jane. This is a book that I read years ago. Okay, so bear with me while I try to recall the details of this book. I do want to preface by saying that this book, similar to Fake Flame, not as bad, but still very much reminiscent of Wattpad. Lots of insta-lust, a lot of very sort of broody, growly alpha male grunting, and that typical he's huge, she's petite and small and tiny. But you know, those books can kind of be my guilty pleasure. Because like, I know it's gonna be a cliche, cringy time, but I'm gonna have a fucking blast reading it. You know what I mean? Like, turn my brain off. This is not serious. This is not groundbreaking literature, but I'm gonna have a good time. And I'm gonna have fun with it. And the couple is child-free by choice. So like, what am I losing out on, really? All right, this book is about Goldie. Actually, her name, her mom named her Goldie Hawn. And it is her romance with Atticus, who is older. I remember him being like in his early 40s, and I think she's in her early 30s. So another age gap. Their best friends end up becoming a couple, and so they are in each other's vicinities a lot. And the both of them definitely have a thing for each other. They're, like I said, very much insta-lust. They're both very sexually attracted to each other. Atticus is a car mechanic, and throughout this book, there's a lot of mention of him smelling like grease and oil and being very like musky and dirty and sweaty all the time. Okay. I remember like at times when they would be doing some dirty things, I'm like, did he wash his hands before this? Girl, watch that pH balance. Yeah, and then they end up falling in love, obviously. So yeah, I had a really fun time with this one, you know? And like I said, it's just a fun, cute little cliche, cringy romance to turn your brain off and get that sort of overbearing alpha male kink out of your system. There's a few mentions of neither of them wanting kids in the book. There's one passage where Atticus is saying in his mind, I vaguely remember Goldie saying that she didn't want kids, so I'm interested to hear her life plan. It's okay that she doesn't want them. I'm not the type of guy who's gotta breed a woman to be with her forever. But I do like a woman with a plan. And then he asks her, do you not want kids because you just don't want them? And she says, as opposed to what? And he says, I just want to know. I haven't met too many women who don't want kids. I'm not judging you. I'm just wondering if you don't want them because it's not your thing, or did your mom fuck you all up and make you think you can't or you'd suck at it? And she says, my mom did fuck me up pretty decent, but I've never had a vision in my mind of me holding a baby with a man over my shoulder, looking down at the baby. Really, I mean, the truth is, I've never really thought about it. I've just written it off my entire life. Okay, I'm actually kind of cringing because I just realized that she calls his member down there the monster. Okay. Oh, God. And he says, oh my God, I don't think I can say this with a straight face. He says, if you don't want the monster to put a baby in you and you're sure you don't want kids, I will get snipped. And she asks, you'd get a vasectomy for me? Honestly, a dream, man. You don't want kids either? He says, the truth is, I want you. I've never been so sure. So if you don't want to be a mom, then I'll get it taken care of. I can enjoy that pussy bareback, and so I can give my queen what she wants. Love that for her. Love that for her. Love that for her. Okay, so yeah, if you want a really fun time where she calls his thing the monster, and he wants to get a vasectomy for her, well, I've never heard anything more romantic. Have you? So yeah, that is The Brazen One by Daisy Jane. The next book I have for you is Love Wrecked by Karina Howell, and this one is super fun because it's about a shipwreck, and I hardly ever read books about shipwrecks. If you have any recommendations, let me know, because it's actually really fun and I love reading about shipwrecks. Not that I like shipwrecks, but I like reading books about people, you know, having to survive on like an island because of a shipwreck. Okay, anyway, this book, I remember it's about Daisy and Ty, and Daisy is the maid of honor for her best friend or sister, either one. She's the maid of honor for either her best friend or her sister's wedding, and then Ty is the best man for the groom. And I remember this couple really pissed me off in the beginning because he was a super grump and she was a super sunshine, and I just thought, this is not gonna work out. The two of them and the rest of the wedding party end up going on this sailboat. Unfortunately, it ends up getting shipwrecked on a deserted island by Fiji, I believe. It is, I think, weeks until they're able to get rescued, but on this island, it is not completely deserted. There's I remember there's a scientist there, and I think there's like a goat or a llama there, and so there's fun things that happen with that. But obviously these two end up falling in love, and they have to figure out how to survive on this island with them not getting along and not really liking each other, and obviously they fall in love. This is a book that doesn't have a singular specific conversation that the characters have about not wanting kids. It's more mentioned in the epilogue. Once they are back home, they are in a relationship, they've survived the shipwreck. It's sort of quickly mentioned that they had a discussion about kids and they both decided that it's not for them. They end up having a child-free life, and that's all there is to be said about that book. It was really fun. Again, I don't read many books or have seen many books about a couple and a shipwreck, so it was really fun. I enjoyed it and highly recommend. That is Love Wrecked by Karina Howell. All right, the next book that I have for you is Sex Says by Max Monroe. I had read this way back when, before 2020, when my full-blown book addiction came back in full force. I read this before that. So it's been a long time since I've read this, and I had forgotten that this was even a child-free by choice romance until I was doing my research and looking up lists, and I saw this book and I thought, that sounds familiar. Haven't I read that before? And I did. I remember I'd read this before. This book, I remember it takes place in San Francisco, and you have our female main character named Lucy Sexton, and she is a romance slash sex slash love columnist for a San Francisco newspaper. Her column is called Sex Says. She is in a coffee shop one day and she overhears this woman complaining about this guy that ghosted her and stood her up after she, was very honest with him about what she wanted and all this stuff. And she ends up writing an article about how women shouldn't settle for anything less than what they want, what they deserve. And then the male main character named Reed walks into this coffee shop and just so happens to see her reading this article called Sex Says, not knowing that she was the one that actually wrote it. And for some reason, this article riles him up to the point that he sits down, records a video responding to that, arguing against it. And he posts it on YouTube, not thinking that anyone's going to watch it, and it ends up going viral. A couple days after that, when Lucy goes into work, her boss calls her into the office and she thinks she's getting fired, and her boss shows her the video and says, this is going viral and you need to respond to this because people are now discrediting your column, saying that you're wrong and he's right and you need to address this. Immediately, Lucy emails Reed and asks if they can meet up and talk about his heinous article in person. And already Reed is thinking, oh my God, this feisty little sex columnist, I didn't know that she was so forthcoming. They meet in person and it's sort of hate on first sight. The both of them do not see eye to eye and they are arguing the entire time. But Reed actually enjoys the banter between them and he likes that she's very passionate about her beliefs and what she does and wholeheartedly believes in everything that she's saying. She tells him that he's not allowed to post videos arguing against her columns anymore. She says, you need to end that, don't do this anymore. And he agrees, okay, I won't make any more YouTube videos arguing against your columns. Then a rival, I think newspaper or magazine, approaches Reed and says, we want you to write your own sex, relationship, love column. And your task is to argue against Sex Says because that's what the people want. So then the two of them end up going back and forth. Lucy says one thing, Reed's article says the complete opposite, him disagreeing with her. Reed is enjoying this. He is loving this back and forth with Lucy. She's hating it because she's like, you need to stop. Like, stop arguing against me. Obviously, they end up, falling in love. And I really did enjoy that Reed, despite him arguing against Lucy, still respected her profession and what she does. That didn't stop him from falling in love with her. My favorite part is that Lucy has a very similar outlook on life as me, and she says, the truth is, I didn't really want kids. Hell, I didn't even want marriage. Conventionally, in general, would probably never be a staple in my love life. My outlook on relationships has morphed into something less traditional over the years, thanks to all that time spent watching with jaded eyes. Marriage wasn't the key to happiness, like so many women prophesized. Commitment, compromise, and true cohabitation were. I pictured my future plenty of times, but it wasn't laid out like ducks in a row: engagement, marriage, kids, etc. It was with someone with whom I wanted to spend my life with, who wanted to spend their life with me, and completely unfocused on the details. I didn't need a 5-year, 10-year, 18-year plan. I want someone who wants to be committed to me, someone who wants to be loyal to me, not out of obligation, but because they want to be, because they love me so much they don't want to be with anyone else. Her sister does have kids, and she is always watching her sister's kids, and so she's having a conversation with her sister saying, your crazy kids and Brian's dad jokes aside, I still don't see marriage and kids in my future. Her sister asks, then what do you want? And Lucy says, I want to find someone to spend my life with, just not in the traditional sense like marriage. I want someone who wants to be committed to me, someone who wants to be loyal to me, not out of obligation, but because they want to be, because they love me so much that they don't want to be with anyone else. And Reed also doesn't want kids. He just wants Lucy for the rest of his life. So what more could you ask for? And that's that. They end up having their child-free by choice happily ever after. So if any of that interests you, I highly recommend Sex Says. All right, the last book that I have to recommend is Better Once Than Never by Nuha Bardeen. I didn't realize, but this book is, I believe, the second book in a series where this author is doing Shakespeare retellings. And apparently this is a retelling of The Taming of the Shrew, which I have never in my life read. For that reason, I really truly did not, know any of the references or what the plot was going to be. I'm just saying that in case you have read that by Shakespeare, or if you're a thespian and that interests you. But it is supposed to be a retelling of it. I, again, have no reference to that at all, but I just wanted to give that information so you know. This is about a woman named Kalina, and she is the maid of honor for her best friend's wedding, and she really wants to find a boyfriend. She really wants to date, but she has a hard time just dating. She doesn't really know how to interact with men and is really awkward and nervous and shy. And then the best man to the groom, his name is Titan. He's a playboy. He gets around. He's out in these streets, babe. Yes, he is. And she thinks that he is the perfect guy, since he does know how to date and he's a professional playboy, to show her how to date a man, to show her what it takes and what men like so that she can find a boyfriend and so she can date more comfortably. Kalina, being her type A self, approaches Titan with a very detailed plan to help her find love because he's an expert, you know, on dating and getting the gal. He agrees to help her for a certain period of time. No feelings or emotions between them, but you know how that goes. And I really enjoy this because Kalina, her background, she is a character of color. Her not wanting kids does sort of go against the grain of what everyone in her family does because of her culture, but it's obviously no problem for Titan. They are having a conversation and Kalina tells Titan, "I don't want kids." I turn to face her. "Interesting. You seem like such a mom." She took a deep breath before the words tumbled from her mouth. "My mother never wanted kids, and she's never been in my life because of it. I don't want anyone to ever feel like I did." She continued to stare ahead, but her shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to push her, but wanted her to know she could talk to me. It's okay. I've come to terms with it. I mean, it's not the only reason, but it is the biggest." Titan nods in agreement and says, "I've never really thought about it, but I don't see myself having kids either." And there you have it. All you really need is that conversation, that understanding, and they have their child-free happily ever after. That is better once than never. Those are all of the child-free by choice romance book recommendations that I have for you guys today. If you have any, and I mean any, child-free by choice romance books that you have read that I have not mentioned in this video or any of my previous videos, please let me know, because I am always on the lookout for more, and maybe one day that recommendation will be in one of these videos. Who knows? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!